Start? Okay. Good morning, everyone. First of all, thanks for Flutter, Montreal organizer. Thanks to Davidson for hosting the event. Always a pleasure to have this nice location. So today, my presentation will be a feedback regarding an experience I came across in my company. I'm pretty sure some people could relate on that because this is something we bump into in general when we're working in software development. So first of all, I will introduce myself a bit. My name is Dexter. I'm currently software developer at EXO. EXO, just to give you a bit of context, is a company which produces hardware equipment to measure the speed of fiber optics and other elements related to telecom, datacom in general. And I'm currently also working with Ali, one of the BDD organizer, in the same team, as the same part of the same team. So yeah, so just the agenda of the presentation. I will just explain, give you a bit of context regarding the problem I came across, why the basic way of testing is not enough, what is BDD test, what it brings us for the team, for developer, for stakeholders in general, what solution I came up with in order to solve the issue. There is a bit of demo, and then we finish up with any question that you have. So another day, another bugs. In order to give you a bit of context, you know, there is some days you're starting, everything is good, you have a bright sun, you come to office, and then someone come and say, hey, I found a bug. Say you are, okay, here we go. It could be QA, it could be your manager, it could be any stakeholders. The strange part is we all know that testing is important, but for some, and we implement tests actually. But the main problem is how tests is not enough, seems not enough, because sometimes someone come and tell me, I found the bug, and you are like, okay, but I'm testing everything. How come the test didn't catch it? So unit tests are not enough. Unit tests just test a single piece of logic, but not a flow, not the whole application, just a part of your application. Same for your UI tests in general. On that's where come BDD test in general. Test it like you use it. So what BDD stands for? Behavior-driven development. So you need to find a way to describe your code as it's a user flow. On where comes this interesting language they call, I will just explain what is it, Gherkin. Yeah, I have a bunch of tabs. Yeah, let's start the context. Gherkin syntax. Something simple. So I'm not really an expert. I'm not really an expert with that. I'm just discovering. So far, what I understand is Gherkin is a syntax created in order to be human readable. And then when you integrate it in your code, whatever you're doing, C#, JavaScript, or other stuff, it will be mapped to your code to execute some, classes or function behind the scene. But the goal is to make something understandable by everyone, whenever it's developer or stakeholders. Yeah, my bad. So the goal is to make something describing user behavior toward your application, like without using code, make the interaction between developers and other stakeholders much more easier, and increase the communication between people, developers and other peoples. So on the right side, you have the situation before you're using BDD in general, BDD methodology, let's say. So you have a stakeholders come and say, hey, I have a new feature that I want to implement. And developer just answer with code on techniques, which is normal because it's how we behave, it's how we respond. And then when you use BDD methodology, you use Gherkin syntax, and everyone agrees on it. So it's much more simple to communicate between technical people and non-technical people to make things much more easier. So, sorry, I forgot to mention, in our company, actually at EXO, we discuss a lot with QA, with stakeholders to understand what they want for the product. And we do implementation basics. But sometimes we need to test a complete flow of user. That's where comes the BDD methodology. I search for some packages because it's already existing in Flutter and Dart in general. But for some reason, when I look at it, some packages are they are not support anymore. There is no one maintain it. Or either way, the syntax of the way to writing the test is is not that easy. You need something easy enough for a developer to implement it and go on as much as scenario as possible. So that's where come the idea I have. It's implementing my own packages based on, yeah.
The format pretty looking like user story.
Yeah.
Is there anything different between user story and then Gherkin?
I didn't dig that much in the history of how it has been created, but regarding the way it's written in general, I'm pretty sure that the idea is to make it close to your user story, to say, okay, given I'm a user on specific pages, when I'm doing a specific action, then I expect a specific outcome. The goal is really to describe it as a human. This is what you're doing in your user story on Agile in general.
Are you going to explain this later?
Yeah. In the demonstration for the package I create, I will explain it. Now that you mentioned, I forget to mention something. We already have in our project at EXO some BDD tests implemented, but the problem is they doing it only for the backend side. So that means the test starts the backend, simulate that the backend sending request, and just assert that what the request, the response of the request is, to verify that the request goes well and the response is good. But it's not enough because you only test the backend flow or not the whole process, because when the QA on other people on the end user test the application, it tests the whole process, the whole flow. So you can maybe pass through something or didn't catch some errors that can happen when you're running everything together. That's the main issue we have. So when I realized this, also by observing how QA doing testing in general, I was like, okay, so the goal is just to have something that starts the application doing clicks, doing the normal user flow in general, and assert that everything is good. The data on the screen, you can also test the UI in general. This is the most important things.
What are you suggesting that you need some additional parameters when you do integration tests? Is that?
Additional parameters, yes, but more coverage, if I can say it like this. You need to cover. Do I have an example? In my demo, maybe yes. Let's say, okay. Let's say in how company at EXO right now, sometimes the QA comes to me and say, hey, when I start the application, sometimes the UI is broken. I see that something is not aligned, or there is some missing elements. And in order to catch that much more easier, implementing a flow like this is much more helpful. Also for him, because it automates what it does in general. Because what I reproduce with BDD in general is what action performed by the QA. So by implementing an automated test, this is how we can call it in general, I can help him to catch it before he even tests it. And we can fix it more faster. That's one of the points that having this kind of implementation. I don't know if that's answer to your question.
You said you were giving a better example of demonstration.
Yeah, I will do a demonstration right after. Just before going to to explanation of what the package does on how it works. Like I said, I was relying on existing library which performing BDD on our project. This library has been implemented in Python. What it does simply is you have the Gherkin syntax, like I mentioned. In order to map function with code, what they does is using, I don't know if in general you call it annotation or decorator. In order to map the function with the sentence, they're using decorator in general. So that means when you execute the test, and you execute this, the code execute behind the scene actually is over there and is attached through this annotation. So when I look at this, I was like, okay, so the concept is really simple. You just map a piece of code, a function in this situation with a sentence, and then you just try to target some element of your UI and try to interact with it, try to interact with it, then assert that the information is present in the page. So I try to reproduce this because it's really simple, like. And that's where comes the package, the Dart packages I implement for that. First of all, who knows what Patrol is? The library Patrol. Okay, so there is only few people. I think I have to explain a bit what it is. I discovered during my research a package named Patrol. Patrol has been built on top of Flutter widget tests. So basically just functions that help you to interact with your UI and test some element. Like you want to interact, for instance, with a, there is some stuff before. No, there is no stuff. Okay, so in this situation, for instance, with normal Flutter, you will just write it like this and try to find, let's say, a logging button in your UI. And you say, hey, I want to find one widget, one button, which have the logging text on it. With Patrol, they try to make it a bit simpler. And you don't have to write all this, but only this. And there is also some algorithm behind the scene that helps you to find much more easier the elements. You can find an element and you can also interact with it, like clicking on the button. They have also some function for that. So instead of redoing all interaction process on all assertion process by myself, I prefer to use Patrol because they already provide me some function in order to do it. That's what I integrate also in my Dart packages in general. So what I implement in this package basically is just a basic way to have like a Gherkin engine. I mean, not really a Gherkin engine, but simulate that it's a Gherkin engine. Mapping function, like I said, with simple sentences through what they call metadata, annotation or, I always forget all the name, annotation or decorator. They call it metadata on Dart, I don't know why, that's why. They change the name all the time. I implement a minimal builder on runner for that, so to have code generation, and to also the runner in order to execute your test in general. Like I said, I use Patrol only for UI interaction, so clicking on buttons, scrolling, and also for assertion in general. Let's go for a demo. So since I'm not familiar right now of how to, publish a package on PubDev, I didn't do it yet, but I will. But for the moment, I just put it on GitHub. I try to make the documentation as clear as possible. So I put the link for the repo on my presentation. Afterwards, if some people have some comments to improvement, feel free to give me some feedback. It's really helpful. Also for EXO, because I proposed that implementation to EXO and we use it actually. So like I said, in general, you're just writing a simple function. You use the packages, like you just have a regular dependency on your project. What you have to write is a simple Dart file with a function, annotate with given, when, then. You remember the Gherkin syntax in general. You can also pass parameter to it. Do I need to zoom, or is it good? Is it better? Okay. So what I implement in this package, I implement custom Dart annotation. So with the given, when, then syntaxes, you can write whatever sentence you want inside of it. You just have to be sure that the sentence you write inside of the annotation is the same existing on your dot feature files, because you have to be matched in order to be executed correctly afterwards. Then, when you run the build runner, it will create for you a file with the extension .bdd.g.dart, which containing a mapping between, which show you which sentence is mapped with which function. And then you just have to run it. And you will see the application starting, executing, and doing all the action that you want. So that's pretty much for the architecture. I don't have that much. So there is just a builder on a runner. It's classic, nothing special. In order to make things a bit more simpler for people, I encourage you to create a file, step registry, when you will register every of your feature on steps associated with it. In order to show how it works, I didn't prepare a special application for that, so I just rely on a basic application provided by Flutter. When you start it, which is a counter. I will start it first, and then I will explain the code a bit. Sorry? I have an issue with my keyboard, so I'm forced to do it like this. Is it better? More? One more? Your appearance. Yeah, I'm using a virtual machine, and I don't want I mess up with my configuration, but some part of my keys doesn't work. Better? Yes. Okay. So I will start it first, and I will explain afterwards how it works. So the application I create for this demo is just a simple counter. So I will start the test, and you will see what it does. It's just nothing extraordinary, like simple action. Linux. So my test right now will just start the application on performing the action I describe in my .feature file. I will show the feature after what it does. So, like I said, it's just starting the app on performing action like a real user. How it works in the Gherkin, let's say, nomenclature in general. I think we can call it like this. You have to create a .feature files explaining what your feature is. You can give whatever the title you want or a description. Explain the different scenario you want to test, and give the steps. So in general, the convention is the when is used for manual action, actual action performed by the user, sorry. And the then is used for assertion, so to check that information exists within your application, or you have, some specific color that you want to assert that it's present in the app. So what I'm doing over there is just saying, okay, this is a just simple counter app. So I say when I tap on increment button 5 times, then I expect that the end count will be 5. Really simple things. But you can use it for whatever app you have. Let's say that you want, for instance, to check user onboarding flow on your application. So you will say, okay, when I enter my email, my password, then I click on the submit button. I click on the logging button. Then I expect to see the next page, which is, I mean, a tutorial description of whatever your application is in general. You can say, for instance, the user guide, or I don't know, a specific icon that it should be shown to the user to guide him into how the tower works in general. Like I mentioned, every of my steps I link to my code through an annotation. The custom, sorry, I tap on increment button. Yeah, every sentence of my feature files is linked to a function through an annotation, a custom annotation built with the custom Dart package I create. And I can even pass, sorry, okay. I can even pass a parameter to it. That part was a bit tricky because it was hard for me to know exactly how to escape a specific character to specify that, okay, this element count, for instance, is a value which will be passed by the user when he will write the sentence. I have to find a way to do it, and the only way I found is just to using regex, to say, okay, at some point you will, when you will read the sentence, you will bump into a curly brace, and what is inside the curly brace will be my variable to use. And it will just use, and I catch the value with this. So I just retrieve the information over there and pass it into a variable. So you can reuse it on your steps. And like I mentioned, these steps I just optimize it, but there is one which is a bit more, this one is a bit more precise. So I still have the signature of my function, which is patrol tester. I use patrol to say, okay, I want to target a specific element on my UI through semantics. Well, semantics is just a label that you can attach to any UI element in order to target it and interact with it. So I just say, okay, I want to target my counter value through a semantics label that I put in my widget tree. Then I want to find a child of this element, which is a text, and I want to be sure that the value passed over there match this text. And that's how I'm doing my assertion over there to say, okay, I expect my count to be 5, true, or whatever, how much time you click on it. Yeah, that's pretty much regarding the code. And I make it simple for the presentation, but you can have much more complex steps on writing it. Like I mentioned, this .feature files, it's understandable by both developer and stakeholders. The way we're using it at Expo right now, QA writing simple scenarios for us, and we're just implementing it through the code in order to automate some testing that the QA does on the daily basis. So the goal is to reduce his workload in general, and also for us to ensure that what we're implementing regarding the code match what is expected for the product. Because when the tests fail, it's not a bad thing. That just also reveals us maybe something is wrong in our code implementation. Time to time, we're just running this automated test and we discover that, there is a racing condition. We didn't catch that before. We didn't realize it because we didn't fall into that specific situation. And then the fact that this test running every time in the pipeline, at some point you just catch an error that we didn't catch before.
Can you explain more code?
Yeah.
For example, a QA wrote the scenario, and you as a developer, you want to implement this scenario with the code. What do you do?
So what I try to understand first is what the QA try to perform through his scenario, because the goal in general, what the QA does is doing action and try to verify some information, try to assert some information. So let's say the QA comes to me and say, hey, I'm on the main page. I want to create a new, let's say for the to-do app.
So for example, do you provide some annotation for QA when they use
No.
it, or they just use their own? Because, for example, one of your example was I am on the overview page.
Yeah.
For QA next story, say I will go to the new, like it's something different.
Ah, you mean the wording?
Yeah, the wording.
Yeah, the wording part is a bit more complex. That's where this the Gherkin syntax is important. We have to align with stakeholders on QA on how we name things, which is a bit important because I can use my own naming like overview page, like you say, but maybe for the QA is not the same things. He didn't say overview page, he say like main page, for instance. So we will discuss about it and say, okay, how you name these pages, how you will consider it. So we will align on that, and then I will use his wording over there in order to be sure that I match as much as possible, I'm close as much as possible of the real world, because code is just like implementing a tool for a specific business case. But we have to be close to the real world. Like we just don't have to implement our own wording or having our own assumption in general. Yeah. Yeah, I forget to show that part. It's through the builder because I implement a builder for that. So I will just suppress that.
Maybe explain the code first and then.
Yeah, I will do that. So when you install the library I implement, basically the only things you have to do is just to implement, create your function, attach a decorator to it, and then writing your sentence. Plus, you also have to create your own .feature file. So the sentence itself.
That should match exactly.
They should match exactly.
Even there's a typo, it's not gonna
It's not gonna work. And then on my side, I implement a builder that generates code. So when I run this command, it will generate for me a generated file to map the function on the sentence. Only doing it through the decorator. It will look if the function is attached with a decorator, and then it will generate the .g file to make sure that they tie together. In order, when you run it, to be sure that it will execute the right function associated to the right steps. Does it answer to your question, or do you need more? So you see over there, image each sentence with the function, because I run the build runner, and because I declare it in my steps before. On each check also the .feature file to be sure that both of them matching exactly. So when I run it, my runner actually, which is over there, will look for my .feature file and will try to execute the function attached to the function. That's what it do. So that means if you have a typo or something which is not correct, it wouldn't work.
As a developer, which exact part I need to do?
The function.
The function itself.
Yeah, can you explain the function?
Yes.
Yeah, what you have to do is just to create a file dot and put a function on it. The name of the function could be whatever you want. The sentence that you put over there could be whatever you want. What you have to respect is really the name of the decorator, because this is what is implemented in the library. And also, sorry, I forgot to mention the signature of the function, because this is what is implemented in the Dart packages that I provide for that. As long as you respect that, the content of your function could be anything. Like I mentioned, I use patrol to target element, to interact with element on doing assertion in general. That's all.
The runner?
Sorry, you said?
Gherkin runner?
The Gherkin runner is just a way to run it more easier. So you just pass, it just will go through your feature and just execute it. I can just, sorry.
So it's only one-time setup for the runner.
Yeah. Yeah. So when I execute my test, it goes there. I passed the name of the feature, and it will just go over it, check for the dot feature files, check the sentence, or for each sentence, it will try to execute the function attached to it. That's all. Yeah.
Instead of writing each unit test, we just write like one function unit test, and then we just write like the other when then of the scenarios to make test run more smoothly.
Yeah, just to precise, the goal of BDD test is not to replace your unit test. It's to be a complement, to increase your coverage and to be much more closer to the reality, to have real user flow, not replacing unit test. It's a complement.
No, and then instead of like doing a function every time to do the unit test, you do one function.
Yeah. The Gherkin runner test does that. Yeah, instead of like running each function one by one, you just aggregate it and run your whole feature in a single shot. That's why I just pass the name of the feature. It will goes to it, and it will just execute the function behind of it. It will just create a thread, like a thread, and just execute the process. Like, yeah.
So how is it the debugging experience? So based on my experience, when I use Build Runner, especially for test,
Okay.
when I do the debugging, let's say something happened and then I need to debug it, it's
Ah.
not easy to trace it. So I'm just wondering that
Being honest, I didn't check that. I didn't go in that part, but it's a good point. I have to check about it. I know it's possible.
yeah, it's always possible, but what I mean is it's always make another layer that I'm not maintaining. So if even you see the text rate, it doesn't. I mean, you need to skip some part and then
Actually, in order to debug on my side, I mostly use the at Exfo. We create a specific library, Exfo debugger, and I just add function inside of it in order to debug. But I think you mentioned more like breakpoints, like, or is it really actual? Okay, I didn't test it with breakpoint, unfortunately. I have to do it. It's a good point. I didn't.
To test the test.
If you want to debug your test.
you need to debug.
I think debug works. I mean, this is basically integration test for the Flutter itself.
Actually,
What
it's a good
it
question.
does is just the library map your BDD test to the integration test. And for the integration test, you can put the breakpoints and you can debug it as same as this. If you run Flutter test,
It is. I'm not okay with that because
talk about the runner.
yeah.
Debugging the generator.
Exactly.
Debugging the generator. No, that's I didn't understand that.
I mean, generated code.
Okay.
May have an issue, or even you have issue in your test code. Probably, I mean, let's say you are doing the metric test. I don't know if you have
Okay.
you have the runner.
Okay. I get it.
Always the tricky the part find exact part
Okay.
of failing test, and then you need to make a link why this function is called from which path and so on.
Okay.
That is always tricky when you are using build runner. That's the code, and when you're using code generation or metric test, the same thing, because when you have the just test, let's say my test here, then my scope is here, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if you build a runner, you need to go to generate code and then come back to the test, and then you also need to see the actual code. So that makes a little, always I found that the decreased dev experience. But I mean, everything possible. But I mean,
Yeah, that's a good point you bring, because I didn't think about it. When I implement the packages itself, I think about adding testing in the package itself in order to be sure that everything goes well. Because I don't want to deliver something which is bad and people will just complain about it. Oh, it doesn't work like. And for the generation part, I just put some error messages, but I didn't think actually it could be possible to debug when you're running. I think about it, but I didn't think about the part debug for the generation part, because in general, I don't even knowing that people doing that, debugging the actual code generator. Is that something common? Because you learned me something. I didn't.
We don't need to debug the
Okay.
generated code.
Okay. Okay.
But when there's an issue in my, let's say, my actual code or my test code,
Okay.
then still I need to go through.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. But that's a good point. I keep it in mind because at the beginning, this package I propose was used only for the team I work with Ali, and we implementing Flutter especially for Linux application. And then, fun fact, someone from another team, a mobile team, came to me 2 or 3 days ago and say, "Hey, your package is really interesting. I want to use it." I was like, "Okay, go ahead." He starts to install it in their project, and he say, "Hey, I have a problem because when I provide the path for my feature, he doesn't find it." So I help him to debug, and we discover something, thanks beta tester. And we realized that it wasn't working because of the platform. Because when I testing my library, I was mostly on Linux because we're working on Linux. I didn't think about, I know that other platform exists, but at this time, I just need to implement it for our project. So that's why I'm testing it with only Linux. And then he tested it with mobile and just realized that, okay, we need to specify the platform because the way you access to the .feature file is not the same when you are on Linux, when you are on mobile, on other platforms. So I was like, okay, that's good. At least some people use it and we discover stuff. Other question maybe? Yeah.
Mentioned that the people that are maintaining this are devs, right?
Sorry, I didn't know.
The people that are maintaining these, what you call them, the feature files?
Yeah.
Those are devs that are maintaining. So if tomorrow product says, well, the rule changes, you have to press the button 6 times to get the number 5 or something. Who does that?
In general, first it comes from stakeholders whenever it's QA or product owner, because it's more easier for them to describe it because it's human. You just describe human behavior. The behavior you're doing, the action you perform on your application, it's coming from them. And then on our side, we just implement the code behind those sentences in order to match, to do the actual action. Like,
There's not a use case where someone is going to go, let's say, modify this file on a GitHub to a non-dev would go and say 6 instead of 5.
It could be. To be honest with you, I don't know what could be the best approach for that. How we're doing it right now at Expo, the QA on a user story or an epic, writing the scenario you want us to test, and it's on the ticket. That's all. He can modify it at any time he wants. And me on my side as a developer, I will just update my .feature file to be sure that it matches what he wants. And I just provide it, when I finish to implement the test, I just show him that it works and that it does what he expects. Like, that's pretty much that. But I don't know how, because I'm not an expert with BDD in general. I'm discovering stuff and I'm doing my own stuff regarding this implementation. So I'm also discovering some, let's say, good habits of how to doing it correctly. And we have actually a good discussion also regarding another topics, which is, I mentioned about semantics, right, during the presentation. Because in order to target an element within the widget tree, you need to attach a semantics, which is just a label or an anchor, if you prefer, let's say, like this. But one of the question is how you name your semantics, how much you put in the code. Because right now, I realize that by rereading the code we have at Expo, that we put a bunch of semantics, and some of them are not really useful. We can just remove them, because you can through the code just say, not really relying on a semantic, but just say, okay, I'm on this page, just search for a text which is welcome. You don't need the semantics for that. You will just search through the whole widget tree, a text widget, which the value is welcome. Like, so you don't need a semantic for that. So sometimes it's useful, sometimes you don't need it. So it really depends. Like, other question? I think you have a question, right? Sorry, I almost forget.
Yes, I was having a question that's related to this. Instead of what seems to be is that you're doing the manual test, but in a situation where you want to refer to debug the generator, wouldn't it be better to implement a handler to execute that, or better still, to assign that task to an agent. I think you haven't gotten to that stage yet. Isn't that the idea?
Actually, Len talked about it. I mean, math meter.
Oh, okay, so that's what you're doing. Hold on.
But actually, it's a good idea. I mean, at EXO right now, we're using Cursor. So maybe we can give that to Cursor, configure Cursor to doing that for us. It could be good for, it could be really good. It mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The code? Oh, yeah. So everything will be give to the AI.
I mean,
Yeah, that's the point, right? Okay.
why do you don't really? It's pretty like yeah,
The-
straightforward as a
Yeah. The point is totally valid. What I'm afraid of is, as you know, sometimes AI give you something which is not correct or not 100% accurate. So that's also yeah, that's true. But what some people complain, I mean, that's what I'm hearing sometimes, that you come to code review and some people will tell you, hey, but this code has been generated by AI. Why are you doing this? Depend on the mentality of people in general. I'm not against it. For me, it's much more easier. Yeah.
transform to that because this is English, right? So they can.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what they wanted. Like they can put any words in there.
Any words. As long as you respect always the keywords.
Given when then.
Yeah.
Given I am a Superman, when I'm, whatever.
Whatever.
In there. And then at the end, as long as the functionality exists.
Yeah.
It will create the test and put them out.
Yeah.
So it's like I could see that. I could see that totally being interesting.
Me, I'm taking it. I'm for it. If that can relieve me from, because as we said, AI is just a tool that can relieve us, from chores in general. So if we can use AI for that, I'm taking it. It's just the problem is, depending on the company where you are, people are not willing to let AI doing too much stuff. Actually, Expo, I think it's a luck for us that Expo include cloud, not cloud, but Cursor on our daily basis development, because there is some company who doesn't accept that. But it's kind of interesting. Maybe we can implement some Cursor rules to do that for us. That's a good point. Yeah, thanks a lot. I appreciate it. That's also what the meetup is for, sharing. No. I just put some research. I came to an end of this. I just put some resources. So the packages itself, if you have any suggestion for improvement, you can open an issue, whatever it is. I just giving some links for Gherkin language on the BDD methodology in general to understand the whole concept behind this. And the last link is just Dart documentation I rely on in order to create my own annotation, what I rely on in order to implement my packages. So that's pretty much. Thanks for your attention. Thanks for coming. If you have any more questions, I'm still there to answer to it. Thanks a lot.